without you. I think about love. God, and I live without you. I live without love. And if that golden dream of my yesterday. No, I'm just testing it out. Everything's balanced. All right, I'll turn it down. Oh, how's this, baby? Oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah. Ooh, how's that? Oh. It's good. Standing on the corner on an alleyway, got a firecracker ready to blow. Maybe I'll just make the vocal louder vocal. All right. I hope that's good.
Turn my microphone on, and now people can actually hear me. Oh my God, rookie move, folks. Sometimes there are just too many fucking buttons to press, right? Let's get things started, shall we? I found this old picture of me. I look just like myself, but younger, less round, and more fire in my cheeks. A gut full of vim and hunger for only God knows what. But I got out of it now. Because my youth was the time when I made up my mind, when I thought I had it figured out, when I didn't know shit but was so full of it that there wasn't any room for doubt. When I was young, I had it figured out. I wrote poems out of everyday speech. I sung each one flush with passion. I stitched a brass heart on the sleeve of the armor I had fashioned out of piss and vinegar, which I wore just like cologne. Because my youth was the time when I made up my mind, when I thought I had it figured out, when I didn't know shit but was so full of it that there wasn't any room for doubt. When I was young, I had it figured out. Woo! Ooh, break it down. The instrumental bridge section. But at some point I grew up and I began to feel unsure. I kept on shining apples that had rotted to the core. So rose-tinted rearview mirror, please replace my old reflection to where it blocks out the morning sun, because I'm blind to new direction. Block out the morning sun, I'd rather relive recollection. Block out the morning sun, block out the morning sun. Now I'm an old man in my eyes, but I'm still just a child in my mother's. And oh, my old victory cries have been echoed in tears of some other guy who also had that twinkle in his mind. Because my youth was a time when I made up my mind, when I thought I had it figured out, when I didn't know shit but was so full of it that there wasn't any room for doubt. When I was younger, I had it figured out. Yeah, I thought I had it figured out. I guess I'll never have it figured out. Whew. This is the first time I've touched the fucking guitar today. This is so weird. I don't ever go this long without having a guitar in my hand. It's absolutely bizarre. I feel like I'm gonna fucking sneeze. Oh my God, my shit is just not together. Here we go. Oh my goodness, I feel like I'm not even in the right place at the right time. I'm all sorts of fucked up. Not my usual sexy and confident self. So guess what? I'm going to play another 2.5 minute tune just to get myself in the right place. I'm so excited about our guest tonight that I want to make sure that once we get going and get chatting, that she and I have all the right things to say and my head's in the right place. So, all right. Whew. Take a breath. Murphy, get yourself together. Get your head in the right place. Let's do one more song. Here we go. The werewolves are howling. The vampires are creeping. The men hunker down as the women start weeping. But the teenagers are all getting stoned in the park. They're not afraid of the dark. They're not afraid of the dark. Be it sickness benign or highly contagious, they laugh in the face of the things most find dangerous. They'll wrestle them gators and swim with the sharks. They're not afraid of the dark. They're not afraid of the dark. The summer sun just burns up the calendar's pages. But when the evening comes, another day lost to the ages, you slow down to see it unfold and find out you're just getting old. horror of that terrible menace. Stiff, hushed in awe, like a crowd watching tennis, while they laugh unaware of their youth's fading spark. They're not afraid of the dark. They're not afraid of the dark. Thank you. I feel a little more in my body now. You know what I mean? I feel a little more like I'm rooted in something. It's a funny thing as a music maker to feel connected to yourself and connected to the world at large in incredibly intimate ways at the same time. Every time you perform, it's almost like an act of meditation, and you know that you've done it right if when the song is over, you feel like you've gone somewhere without going anywhere. And when I did that first song, I felt like I was just like going through the motions and plugging away and doing things that weren't working. And I felt like I needed to play another one just to get my head in the right place. And I appreciate you indulging me and letting me do that. Now, let's get on to the reasons y'all actually came tonight. As I said before, you're watching the Tuesday Night Live stream with Chris Q. Murphy. We have been doing this now since May. Weekly. We've been doing it with special guests since August weekly. I'm totally excited about the guests we've had on and the guests that we are going to have on going into the future. We are booked for the rest of 2020 and already getting booked up for 2021 with fantastic songwriters and people that love to talk about songwriting and performing the songs that they wrote. And tonight is no exception. Now, those two songs that I just played are both about getting old and being from the past. And this person is indeed a part of my past. But you know what? Social media is an incredible tool for keeping us connected these days. This is somebody that I probably have not been in the same room with for, I'm going to say, easily 12 or 13 years. But back in the day, she was a bartender at a place that I played and cherished so much in the East Village called Banjo Jim's. Everybody always tells stories as New Yorkers about their place in New York that closed and wasn't there anymore. And it wasn't until Banjo Jim's closed that I had one of those places. Everybody's got this pizza spot or this bar that was theirs. And when it closed, it was like a weird, dark rite of passage as a New Yorker. And for me, it was Banjo Jim's. I played there the third Saturday of every month with one of my bands for 3 years solid. It was fantastic. It always felt good. I felt like I was connected not only to the people there because you were playing 2 feet away from them, but the people that were working there. It seemed very organic and symbiotic. A good night at Banjo Jim's was a good night for the people behind the bar, the people drinking at the bar, and the musicians playing music. It was really fantastic. And again, I haven't seen this person since Banjo Jim's was open, and that was like a jillion years ago. But thanks to the miracle of social media, I've been able to keep up with her goings on as a songwriter and a performer, and I think she has so much to bring to the show that we haven't necessarily seen yet. So I'm going to go ahead and shut my trap and introduce everybody to Mya Byrne. Ladies and gentlemen, Mya, welcome to the show.
Hey,
How you doing? It's good to see you too in the flesh. Oh my goodness. Well, sort of in the flesh. Sort of in the flesh. I know. So you are in San Francisco.
I am. I'm in the Castro-ish.
And the Castro, is that I know nothing about San Francisco. Tell me about the Castro.
The Castro is kind of like living, well, I'm sort of on the outskirts of it in Dubois Park, but basically it's like if you remember the way St. Mark's used to be like hippie punk street, and keep walking down St. Mark's to Christopher Street and it would become like, gay town. That's basically what it is, and it's really cute. So I'm sort of in the middle of that. So it's kind of like living in a mishmash of the leafy part of the West Village, and I got really lucky to find a place here that was affordable, especially right now because it's really hard everywhere to find a place to live. But gosh, Banjo Jim's closed in, I believe it was August of 2011. I stopped working there before then. which was sad. Um, but the people involved and I have made amends with each other, and
Oh, that's good.
yeah, it is good. No, and it just like it was such a hard time. There were a bunch of us who wanted to keep the bar open, and for me, Banjo Gyms was really it changed my life. You know, when I started playing there when it opened, I would just show up there just to see music or to see what was happening, and I wound up becoming a regular, and then I wound up hosting the open mic, and then I wound up working there, and then I kind of like became the unofficial face of Banjo Gyms for a while, and you know, I remember and somewhat half remember too some really great nights. Saturdays were always great because those were always the nights where it was never officially my shift, but often the lead bartender that would wind up getting a shift at Turkey's Nest, which was
Ah, Sean.
yeah, Sean. And so he'd call me up, be like, hey, you want to come in and finish my shift? There's some good bands playing. It's like, sure, Sean. And and of course, you remember, like we would just hang out, and we'd party all night. It was wonderful, and yeah, it's it's hard for a lot of us that banjo's closed, and it would have been wonderful if it had stayed open. And we do all have memories, and I'm in touch with so many people from those days, which is really nice, and it gave me so much that time. Um, and it helped, it really propelled my career into a different place, and it's honestly where I met a lot of the people that took me into the next phase of my life, and it's one of the reasons why I wound up in San Francisco, honestly. So, yeah.
Now, wait. I'm going to need an explanation on that one because I have to say,
It's a
yeah.
long explanation.
Well, first of all, if you got time, we got time. But I will say that of all the people we've had on, it has been very New York centric because those are the circles that I run in.
Of course.
In terms of my like musical life, especially pre-COVID musical life, I've always been very much a local musician because there are a lot of things that keep me tethered, in love with New York City. Yeah, I mean, I have a union job here. I have a wife and two kids here, which means that my life as a musician looks very different than a lot of the people that I'm lucky enough to count as friends that are full-time players, full-time touring musicians, etc. Either way, though, like because I'm kind of here all the time, it means that this is my circle of people, and the opportunity for me to talk to people who experience music outside of New York City is a rare one. So people that are watching are going to indulge me just a little bit here, because in addition to hearing about how Banjo Gyms got you to San Francisco, I'd like to hear just a tiny bit about maybe the difference in playing music in New York versus playing music in San Francisco.
I think the real big difference, and it's not really. First of all, is my audio okay? Can you hear everything clearly?
You sound great.
Okay. The difference here is it's a lot like New York was probably. I compare it a lot to maybe the way the Williamsburg scene, or at least before COVID, around 2016. I moved here in 2015, and it's there's a. Let me start again. There is a real value placed on live music here, and there are a lot of our friends sort of have floated in between here and there, like the people from the Banjo Gym scene. There were a lot of folks there was a lot of overlap with the Marin County jam band scene and stuff like that. So Bill Bell, one of the other bartenders from Banjo Gyms, actually turned me on to how the music scene was in San Francisco. So when I had met a woman who I was dating for a long time, while I was working at Banjo Gyms, I used to go to San Francisco to visit her family on holidays, and we would go to all these places and meet up with Bill when he was on vacation, and I started to get a little bit of the scene. But the thing is, it's a lot like Williamsburg was before everything started getting built up, because there are a lot of venues here. Unfortunately, some have closed, many have stayed open, but there's such a value placed on live music and of the lives of musicians, and music is a valued commodity here. And you know as well as I do that places like Banjo Gyms or Bar 4 or even Rockwood were few and far between, where the music is not their destination venues. You go there because you know something cool is going to happen, because your friends are going to hang out. And I found a lot of that here, especially in the queer music community. There are just certain places where I would go to at certain nights, and people would be at the bar, and we wound up hanging out and just doing cool things together. And so there is a place called the Lost Church where I was supposed to have a residency this year, which is very similar to Rockwood One. There's there's a wonderful house concert scene here. There's a lot of folk music, and there's not what I was used to in New York when I started out. There really isn't any pay for play kind of stuff here. Like, you show up and venues give a crap. Venues help you promote. I mean, you do a lot of promotion yourself, but it's really nice. It's very lovely in that way, that, and we all do stuff at the venues, and everybody knows each other, and people are pretty tight, and it's not like, okay, well, if you don't bring in 15 people, you know, your first 15 people go to the door, and then this, and then this, and then that, and whatever, and you walk out of there with no money. I get guarantees here, and it's really wonderful to be able to get paid to play your original music. Especially when you're a queer trans person like I am. So this one venue, El Rio, that I really love. They have a dedicated night. They book across the spectrum, but they have a dedicated night to queer music where there's no cover for the queer community, but they specifically want people to set up shows and to party and to have a good time, and it's the best gig in town, because you go there and you absolutely, you walk out of there and everybody, like, you can pay you can pay your rent off of gigs. And that's what I've been doing. I've been playing gigs for people, and I'm a huge commodity here because I'm a multi-instrumentalist. The punk scene is fantastic. There's a lot of overlap between the punk scene and the country scene, and it's really special. And then I was part of the warehouse scene for a long while too, which was really holistic and fantastic. And then you've got folks like, there's the Golden Bull in Oakland, which is owned by Billy Joe Armstrong, and it's just like a cool punk bar where people hang out and play music. But we have had venues close. Like, there was a wonderful sober space called the Octopus Literary Salon, which was wonderful, in the Bushwick Book Club of Oakland. Started out there. It was a really great venue, and they were forced to close because of rent. This is last year, before the pandemic happened. And then many of us have been participating in, like, GoFundMes and stuff like that to help keep some of the storied venues open, and to make sure that our friends get paid, because so many of us have lost income. And I don't have to tell you that it's really difficult right now. And luckily, we're praying that a lot of our venues stay open. And a lot of the old venues are still here. That's the other thing too. The Fillmore is still here. The Bill Graham Civic Center is still here. Great American Music Hall. The only big place that closed is Slim's, which is a venue that was opened by Boz Scaggs, like, I don't know, 25 years ago.
Whoa.
Yeah, the Warfield Theater, where the Grateful Dead used to play, and 924 Gilman, which is where Green Day got its start. It's like, that was the last actual show I had, was playing with a punk band on that stage.
It's fucking legendary,
right?
Dude. Oh.
Yeah, right. I'm like playing an SG in a mini dress and a mesh top on Valentine's Day, rocking out
At 924 Gilman.
Oh my God, it's amazing. So there's that, and then there's just a lot of caring people, and I just find, and I had just started to dip my toes into the waters of the Grateful Dead scene too, when this all went down. So that's been tough, because but one of the last shows I attended was seeing Winona Judd and Bob Weir at the Fillmore, and I was backstage, like, sitting in this little side table where Bill Graham used to sit. Yeah. It was super cool. I was just like, this is so neat.
It's so cool to hear that the scene is also maybe cognizant of its own history,
it really
which New York is constantly trying to, like, erase in hopes of something shinier and newer.
I know. We're the last generation that, like, really, like, has seen, like, in New York specifically, going from like Kenny's Castaways. People who are coming to New York don't know what Kenny's Castaways was.
Oh man, I
was there
love
forever.
it. Was for like 100 years.
Yeah, and that's why I'm so passionate about. I really want the Bitter End to stay open, not only because my friends work there and because we do all these wonderful shows there, but because it's such a great venue and it's launched so many careers, and it's a place that I play when I'm in town, and but again, like, so it's a long story, but like, so when I started working at Banjo Gyms, I met the person who would become my former spouse, and I started getting involved in activism right around the time of Occupy and all of this other stuff when I met them, and it was just like I met them at Banjo Gyms, and we had all this, and I still have a lot of love for them. They're wonderful, but we're not together anymore. But we had decided we're going to move to San Francisco because that's the one place where it's safe for trans people and to be, and that has since changed in New York, and New York has really opened up for me in a different way since I moved here. I mean, I say to people often that moving to San Francisco has made me fall in love with New York all over again, because until the pandemic, I was bi-coastal. I was in New York almost every 9 weeks on average for like 3 weeks, and so it's been tough, especially right now, because so many of my dear friends are there, and and my family, of course, but.
Wow. Well, you went there. No, I appreciate, and I love it. I appreciate that you went there and you dug deep on the Banjo Gyms and the connection. For those of us that are still kind of, slugging it out in the New York scene, which, as you know, can be ultra competitive, and you alluded to before, so often it's about, the numbers at the door and behind the bar. It's exciting to hear that after doing that for so long, you have found somewhere that it, first of all, was a safer place to play for trans people. And second of all, was a place that was immediately supportive and open. And that sounds great. That's like living the dream for a songwriter, like a guarantee to play your own songs. I think I get that twice a year tops. And the guarantee is like, negligible.
Right. And that's the thing. It became, I was really amazed at how this place opened up to me. And one of my partners says, if you're in the Bay for more than a year, for more than 2 years, and you're able to stay here, it means the Bay wants you. People have a very big respect for the way this place is, and like there's a big sense of place.
Yeah.
And something that came to me when I moved into this apartment, because I was living in Berkeley before, which is beautiful. It's wonderful in Berkeley. I lived on the same block as Michael Chabon, which was so weird to see Michael Chabon walking.
Whoa. Yeah. It's funny. My only connection to Berkeley is that book. Like, by the way, have you listened to the audiobook of that book?
What, the
Telegraph Avenue?
No.
Yeah, Clark Peters reads it. I'm trying to think of, he was in The Wire. He's in His Dark Materials. Fantastic actor. And he reads it. And it's fucking fantastic.
That does sound really cool.
Yeah, I put the book down when I got the audiobook. I was like, I'm not going to read this. I'm just going to listen to it. Anyway, sorry.
But yeah, so when I moved to this neighborhood, a friend of mine who's one of my bandmates, I was having a lot of feelings about leaving the place that I'd lived for so long. And they reminded me, they're like, your musical ancestors, your queer ancestors, everyone that you love and respect and admire lived where you live right now. They're there with you. And I think about that a lot. I go out walking at night a lot, and I'll pass Harvey Milk's house. I'll pass Janis Joplin's house. I'll pass Gilbert Baker, the guy who designed the rainbow flag. I'll pass his house. I'll pass the house where Proposition 215 came up with, and there's such a sense of history here, of living history, that is palpable, and a lot of respect for that history. And the scene has changed a lot. A lot of venues did close that I do love over the last few years because of mass gentrification. But the truth of the matter is what's been really interesting since the pandemic started is a lot of people left. A lot of tech bros left and I'm seeing a lot of younger artists moving back to the city, and there's this sense that we're getting the city back, and I know that that's happening in New York too, and yeah, and so I mean, there's no silver lining to a pandemic, absolutely not. But the lessons that we learn from it are lessons that we can take with us, and
Nice. Well, I want to talk about creating in the pandemic, but first, I want people to remember why we're here, which is fucking songs. And I'd love for you to play us some songs. So, people that are watching, I'm going to get the hell out of the way, and I'm going to give Mya Byrne her shot to play something magical for all of you. I'll be back in a couple minutes. Take it away.
Okay. This is a song I actually wrote in Brooklyn a couple of years ago. What I'm feeling, I just can't define. I've closed my mind off thinking about it. Wish I had no cause to doubt it. What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? Wish I knew an easier way to find the words I want to say. What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? Just like us, they're close to talking. Footprints in the snow side by side. See them holding ribbon flowers, counting up their happy hours. What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? Wish I knew an easier way to find the words I want to say. What'll I tell that sweetheart of mine? Do I love you? Maybe I do. If I don't know, what can I do? So fun. My housemate got a new audio interface today, so I'm having fun playing through it because it sounds really good. So I hope this sounds good. It sounds as good for you as it does for me in my headphones.
It does.
All right, let's see. Where should we go with this? Rock, Chris. All right. Here we go. This is a song that I actually just tracked a couple of days ago for an EP I'm recording remotely with my band here in the Bay, which is going to be super fun. And my friend just laid down drums on it last night. But I actually wrote it for the Bushwick Book Club of Oakland. And if you're not familiar with the Bushwick Book Club, basically you read a book and you have to write a song based on something from the book. It could be anything. I've written songs for an Octavia Butler book. This one was the first one I did, though, and it's based on chapter 15 of Oliver Sacks's Musicophilia, which is about a person who had amnesia and was brought out of it by his wife figuring out that they could relate to each other with music. So here we go. It's called Memory Knows. Full growl. Full growl.
Full growl indeed. Dude, I gotta say, I saw that hashtag on your Instagram when you're talking about tracking that, and I was like, that is a killer hashtag for so many ways.
I want Dave to get that.
If we could find a way to just get full growl, it seems like the kind of thing he would legit appreciate.
I think so too. Especially that song. It's going to be super great. I'm really excited about that track. Geez, I've forgotten to share this thing on Facebook. The actual live stream that's live right now. But I hope that somebody's sharing it.
Yeah, I hope so too, because that was fantastic.
Yeah,
that was. I can only imagine what a full growl arrangement sounds like, and I can't wait to hear it.
It's really cool. Our drummer Genesis Furman, who's a magical, amazing drummer, bass player, guitar player, songwriter, singer, laid down some killer drums on it yesterday and sent me a rough mix. And it's so good. And our bassist, whose name is Fury, who used to play in a band called the Shondas, they're gonna lay down. They just bought a ridiculously overpowered orange bass head, and they're gonna like lay down Rickenbacker bass through it, and it's just gonna it's gonna be so loud and big and weird and good. And 2 minutes and 50 seconds of full growl.
Love it. Oh, those tone things. I love that you're such a gear nerd about this stuff. To get back to old New York for a minute, I was in a straight ahead rock band. You know, like we weren't a punk band, we weren't a pop punk band, we were a fucking rock band. And this is like going back to 2001, 2002. And one of like the spot that we felt like we looked and sounded the coolest at was the Elbow Room, which was on Bleecker Street. I think is it where LPR is now? Anyway, we loved playing there. And their back line was insane. The stage was 4 feet off the ground, and it was huge sound. It was like mini Irving Plaza, and they had this killer back line. And I remember that I used to roll up there. I played a Rickenbacker in that band, and they had an SVT Classic and an 8x10 cab as their house bass amp. And I remember like just rolling up with a Rickenbacker, playing through an Ampeg with the 8x10. I was like, I could play 3 notes and I'm going to be a badass, because this is what rock tone is made of. Like,
right.
This is it. Like, I don't have to be that great at this instrument, and I'm going to sound fucking cool too. The album.
There's nothing like that. I don't remember that space at all. I was only at Poison Rouge once.
Yeah.
To see Ricky Lee Jones, which was pretty cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Buddy of mine was just like, "Hey, I've got tickets to see Ricky Lee Jones." I was like, "Yes."
That's awesome. That's a really fantastic space that really books the gamut of music. I've seen my friends like early music, like Renaissance vocal ensemble, and they sounded great there. And I went to like John Zorn's whatever birthday party with like his whole cast of characters there. And that was fantastic. I've seen rock shows there. Anyway, that song was so good.
Thank you.
Can you slip even an acoustic version of it like into my DMs or whatever, so I can?
Yeah, I'll slide you the rough mix.
Yeah, I just want to listen to it again. Now you had said before, and you'd said a couple times, you talked a little bit about what the pandemic has looked like for venues.
Yes.
And you talked about what the pandemic has maybe looked like for big cities like San Francisco and New York. But one of the topics of interest on this show has really been what this pandemic has looked like for creative artists of all stripes. People like me that just like, I do it as a sideline and I make money and I consider myself a professional, but not a full-time professional. All the way from me up to people that do this as their livelihood and their passion at the same time. I would love to hear your thoughts on how living like we've lived for the last 9 months has affected you as a creative.
It's been incredibly difficult to fathom this whole thing, and the fact that I'm even making a record right now, like, I know so many people are like, "Oh, when are you gonna put out your pandemic record?" I'm like, "Hey, people are dying," and not to throw shade on anybody who's honestly using this time to be creative and to be able to put stuff out. But so here in the Bay, we're about to go into full lockdown again because of the caseload, but also what's been happening to me is that, and I was talking to a friend of mine in New York about this, that it's been so difficult for me to engage in joy while the world is hurting so much. And part of that is because, I've gone through a lot of trauma, so, it makes you empathetic to the trauma that other people are feeling. And so many, music has also brought me a lot of joy during this time. One of the things I do in New York when I'm there is called Mondays in the Club, and it's a party around the piano that happens at Club Cumming on 6th Street and Avenue B. And so for a while we were doing that in exile. We did that for 17 weeks online. That was really fantastic because it was all of my friends in New York and beyond just coming together and singing songs for each other live. And then things like what we're doing right now are really great. But I've also found that for me, doing live streams was really difficult because I started out being like, I've got to do stuff for my fans and make sure I'm still engaged. Not because of engagement, but because I'm like, I need to, it's got to do the thing because that's my job. It's what I do. And and then Genesis, who plays drums with me, um, put together a wonderful music festival, an online music festival called I Need Space, and I was part of that, and I'll be part of that again coming up. And that's been really great because it's just been queer artists from all over the spectrum um, coming together, and so there's been all of these things that have come out of that are great because yeah, I'm reaching people I wouldn't necessarily have reached before. My songwriting workshop that I attend when I'm in New York meets every week now instead of, me going to New York every like other month and going there for 3 weeks. And so it's been great that I've written like 70 songs, and they're not all good. um, and but so that's been my main creative outlet has been songwriting, and which I mostly do in a vacuum, and I mostly do on Mondays, and then contributing to people's albums. But for me, I've had a real problem just trying to be outwardly creative and bubbly about it because I'm just like, this is really a horrible, crazy time, and I never use the word crazy, and it's just we've never experienced anything like this in our lifetimes. And so I'm talking to my friend yesterday, and I'm just like, this is, what I miss? I miss singing with people. I miss hanging out and jamming with people. That's one of the things about San Francisco that I really love is that I I love just hanging out and jamming with people, which is not often a thing that you always get to. That was one of the things about banjos that was great, is that people would hang out afterwards and we'd jam. Like, you remember, I would, like, shut the door when everybody had left, and we'd, like, hang out till 3 in the morning, like, playing music. And, like, but here there's a value in that. There's a value with people just, like, hanging out and just jamming out. And I have a lot of friends who just love to groove out and just make music for the joy of it. But this is the first time in our modern history that musicians have not been able to sing with each other. And it's hard because, of course, like, I know lots of musicians who are potted up together, and then there are people like in Nashville and in New York and even here and in LA who are managing to do pandemic sessions with masks on, or the sessions they're doing at Rockwood with no audience and stuff like that. And I'm sure they're taking all the precautions, but I'm immunocompromised. I can't really do that. I know, and my band can't do that because, they're dealing with, like, elderly folks, and, like, God forbid anybody should get sick. And so that's the thing. I'm trying really hard to. You can't force creativity, but I've also been doing, like, when people ask me to do things, I say yes. I mean, I have yes tattooed on my wrist for a reason. I want to be engaged with music and with people and with fans and with friends, and it's really hard to motivate myself right now. And because I do this full time, it's been extremely difficult. I've been really lucky that I've gotten a bunch of paid gigs and commissions. People have asked me to contribute to their records. I got pandemic unemployment, which is amazing that even happened under this current administration. But I'm getting by. But I know I write for a music magazine, and I talk to musicians all the time, and everybody's in the same place. They're just like, I just want to be on the road. And then I know a lot of people who are just like, well, maybe I don't want to be a massage therapist anymore. Maybe I want to become a priest. Maybe I want to become this. Maybe I want to do that. So, and it's been especially hard for the most marginalized of us who need to work with people, whether you're a grocery checker or you're a sex worker or something like that. It's if you can't stop working and you're not getting money from the government, what are you going to do? Like, I have a privilege here, which is, it's like I managed to get public assistance, and nobody should feel ashamed of that. But yeah, it's certainly changed the way I approach creativity right now, because it's like I'm not going to put on a happy face and say, oh, well, yeah, everything's fine, because it's not. And at the same time, I want to be able to engage with music in a joyful way, and so doing things like this, it's joyful for me, because I know that I know that you're listening, Chris. I know that there are people out there
Absolutely.
who are paying attention, and and it makes me happy to be, virtually in a room with you, engaging in this way. And those are the kinds of things I want to do. And I was alone for a lot of this pandemic, and it's really nice to. I have a new roommate who's a musician, so we were just sitting around singing songs last night, and that felt so good.
That's so good. I love it. I mean, that connection is that's why I do this. Like I'm past the point in my life of really doing it for my own edification, and I'm clearly not doing it because it's my job. The ability to connect with other people, whether they're audiences or other musicians, is why I do this. And it's not only my life's work as a musician, but it's also my life's work as a teacher. Like the two are interconnected to me, and I tell this to my students all the time. Like my life as a musician and my life as a music teacher is not an either or proposition.
Right.
The two things inform each other. I'm a good music teacher because I maintain a life as a musician. And I think whatever musical skills I have are incredibly enhanced by the fact that I am continually having to call on those skills in an improvisatory way and connect with people who just happen to be in front of me. And I got to say that the singing thing has been the hardest thing for me. You hear so much about teachers and parents and students struggling, figuring out how to continue getting an education, a public education throughout all of this. And it's been challenging. I think that my school has done a really, really good job of putting the kids' emotional well-being first. I think we recognize the community that we teach, which is predominantly Mexican American and Chinese American working poor community in Sunset Park. It's a Title I school, and we understand that for some of these people, some of the parents, this pandemic is hitting in a harder way and even a different way than to those of us who are privileged enough to have union jobs through all of this.
Right.
And this, I think that my school has gone to great ends to make this as easy as we can as a public institution, whether that's connecting parents one-on-one with local community organizations, hooking up with food banks in the area, doing everything we can to pass the information on along to the families, using our network of being a connective tissue to make sure that people have knowledge in their hands. On a really personal note, I take great pride in the fact that I make 13-year-olds sing together.
That's wonderful.
Not ones that auditioned, not ones that elected my class. Like they have to have my class in 8th grade. And all of my kids, I don't make them stand up and sing alone and then judge them like fucking American Idol. But my classes sing together. And the kids don't know that that's why they feel safe in my classroom. And the kids don't know that's why they feel confident about raising their hand in my classroom. They just think like, oh, this dude somehow convinced me how to sing and I'm really enjoying it. But it's been like the key, I'll say, to my success as a teacher for, I'm going to say, the last 12 years of my career. And now I'm trying my damnedest, but it's like the greatest weapon, if you will. God, weaponizing education, that sounds fucking terrible. The greatest tool in my toolkit has been kind of like taken away from me because I can't sing with these kids.
Yeah.
Because doing it over the internet, the latency thing makes it impossible. Like I can play and they can sing at home, but they're not getting the immediate feedback of hearing your voice bounce off your neighbor's face.
Yeah, and that feeling in your body,
Oh God. Sorry, I'm tearing up a little bit. Just
No, I get it. Like one of the things that I try to do in my weekly songwriting workshop is I like to listen to it through my loudspeakers, and I just moved into this place, so my guitars usually hang on the wall, and I haven't put them up on a wall yet. They're just like all kind of like strewn around, as they are. But when they're one of the wonderful things about doing these weekly song things with my workshop or with the Mondays in the Club crew was that people would sing and I would hear my guitars like resonate in harmony, and I was just like, oh, and I'm like that, and that's good for me too,
Yeah.
and that's so important. And this is, and sometimes I'll go up for a walk. There'll be a bluegrass band in the park. There'll be a jazz band just on the corner, and I admire them, and but I'm also, man, I'll be real, I'm very scared to go do stuff like that right now.
I feel that.
For many reasons, it's like who the hell knows what could happen, and I'm, I'm just, there's no way to be safe during COVID, and this is like, we all are doing our best, and I feel so bad for so many people. But I have to remember that what happened after the last pandemic, the last big pandemic in 1919, right after that was the Volstead Act. And because of the Volstead Act and because of people going to Paris and coming back from the war, we got cabaret culture. That's what started cabaret culture. So I'm cautiously optimistic that when this is over and when people are well and we can safely reopen, what we're going to see and hear is going to be amazing, because so many of these places, Cafe Society, all of this stuff came out of that time of great hurt and war and woe, and we're just, when we open up, I think we're really going to open up, and I really pray that we can be together, because that's what we're supposed to be. And it troubles me greatly to see people who are just like, whatever, I'm just gonna do my thing anyway. I'm like, no. I'm Jewish. I'm like, if I'm suffering, you're suffering. I'm suffering so the world doesn't have to suffer. Sorry.
That's totally fine.
Inner Larry David comes back.
I will say before you play another song, that while there obviously have been all sorts of health risks involved, once New York's numbers kind of settled down in the early summer, because, as much as Cuomo's a fucking corporate crony, like his having somewhat of a firm hand on the way we did things in New York State meant that we really locked down. I'm proud of New York for getting it under control after being the fucking epicenter of it right after it started in America. I will say that music in the parks in New York City fucking exploded. Not in it was beautiful. Not in like a super sanctioned way. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Not through the parks department, not through grants or community organizations. Bands just started fucking rolling up to parks. Like, I think that a couple of the New York chains, Sam Ash has a couple of big depots. They could not stock battery-powered amps fast enough.
That's a great.
I have a trio that was my 2019 and early 2020. I was exploring what it felt like to play in a trio for the first time in my life, because it's such a weird relationship to have with other musicians. A duo, I understand, playing solo, I understand, but the trio thing has been magical. And COVID shut us down right when things were starting to go good. We had just set up a residency somewhere, and then it was like, nope, nobody's gigging anywhere. At some point at the middle end of the summer, we would get together masked 6 feet apart in whatever park we could all get to and just play. And I have to say that the first time I did it, it was like, tears coming down my eyes.
Sounds so great.
And I'm lucky that I was able to do that. We're not doing that anymore. But yeah, God, I love that you're willing to say so much that's so profound and heavy. And I hope that the regular watchers of the show are appreciating the fact that while we also often go off on kind of strange tangents or meaningless nostalgia with some old friends, I love that Mia is willing to kind of really dig deep on this. I genuinely and deeply appreciate that. And I think the only thing better than that could be if you played some more songs. So
You got it.
I'm going to shut up and get out of the way. Mya Byrne, take it away. You know what I am going to do, actually? You talked a lot about missed income. I paid like this much money to do this show every month. And I would like to start paying my guests as much as possible, which at this point would be a net negative for me. But I'm starting to accept donations. And I will say that once my tiny little costs are covered, 100% of the money that gets donated to me right now will go to the artists that are on the show. As of right now, I'm giving 66%, well, 0.6% of whatever y'all donate to whoever's on the show as my guest. I will Venmo it to them or Cash App, whatever, to them within a half an hour of the show being over. So I'm going to let my thing scroll across while Mya plays some songs. Send money so you can send her money. Play songs.
All right. So I wrote this song with my friend Amy Regan, who left us in maybe 2 years ago. We wrote it on my rooftop in Williamsburg, and we're recording it right now. We being my band. I can see in your eyes you're not there. I didn't wanna believe it. You got me wrapped up in praises. When I come closer, you said all the right words. You're only fooling yourself. Just reading your minds like an actor, like I could be played by anyone else. Say you're ready, you're just pretending till you come to that line. Toe in the water, but never farther. I was almost your kind of girl. I was almost your kind of girl. I was almost your kind of girl. You might as well call me queen. Do you know you're playing a game? Just reading your lines like an actor. I screwed that one up. Do you know you're playing a game? I'll make it easy. I know you can. Don't say a word you don't know that you say you're ready. You're just pretending till you come to that line. Toe in the water, but never farther. I was almost your kind of girl. I was almost your kind a song that I remember the chords to. Thanks for listening, everybody. Oh yeah, this is a song about the house I used to live in. It's called Fault Line. It won Best Folk Song of the Year at the inaugural Trenders Music Awards, which were in New York last year. Yeah, it's been featured in a lot of places, and I'm really proud of it. So it's about my old house, which was shaky as hell and was literally on the Hayward Fault Line. So, but it's also metaphorical. So here we go. Floorboards creak and the plumbing leaks. Nothing much about it straight. It's made it through the big one. Fires that burn all around. Somehow we're still standing on less than solid ground. We live on a fault line. Old house that sways. When the earth starts shaking, it could all fall down. Cracks in the foundation and ripples in the glass. Worn spots on the staircase, seeing to the past. Hide marks by the basement door from families long gone. We don't know what's become of them, but this old place lives on. We live on a fault line. Old house that sways. When the earth starts shaking, it could all fall down and break. We live on a fault line, dangerous place to be. So far this house has made it, baby, so will we. It's hard to keep a balance when you're straddling that line. Who to blame when things go wrong? Who to praise when things go right? When the ground is trembling and everything's a fight. So hold on to each other, hold on with all our might. Sure, it needs a few repairs like most old good things do. Curtains and a coat of paint, at least the bones are strong and true. So many things we lost in time, it's a wonder we survived. We live on a fault line that makes us feel alive. We live on a fault line, old house that sways. When the earth starts shaking, it could all fall down and break. We live on a fault line, dangerous place to be. So far this house has made it, baby, so will we. We live on a fault line, old house that sways. When the earth starts shaking, it could all fall down and break. Oh, we live on a fault line, dangerous place to be. So far this house has made it, baby, so will we. Baby, so will we. Yeah. We live on a fault line. Ba-down-down.
I love that song. I love it so much. I listened to it about 40 times this week. Yeah, I did. I drove, let's see, one of my sons and I went for a drive the other day, and he had control of what we listened to for the first 15 minutes. And then I put it on, I think just on Spotify, and I listened to it. And Sam said, "Daddy, who's this?" And I said, "This is Mia, and she's going to be on my show this week." And he said, "Cool." And he started kind of singing along the way 6-year-olds do, just the line, "We're all on the fault line." And then he asked me to play it again. So we listened to it like 4 or 5 times in a row. Yeah.
Thank you, Sam.
It's a great song. Sam is quite the discerning music fan. I gotta say, I know how serious a songwriter you are, and I also know a little bit about the school of songwriting you come from, just because your bridges are so sick. Almost every song has. They don't always, but almost every song has one, and they're all like fucking rock solid, and arguably sometimes the best part of the song, because that's what great bridges got to do, right?
Yeah.
It's a bad habit I have. I feel like I default to putting a bridge in a song, and sometimes I shouldn't. But when I was listening to your stuff this week, kind of getting in the groove, I was like, "Oh, she always has bridges." Oh, yeah. I'm gonna keep. Yeah, never mind.
There's
No.
a few, like the first song didn't have a bridge. I mean, it had a musical bridge, but yeah, that song. I also really love Lucinda Williams, who has never written a bridge in her life, except for the song she co-wrote with Elvis Costello.
Which had 7 bridges because Elvis Costello.
Elvis Costello.
Who, by the way, is probably like my number one influence as a songwriter. It's like exactly. It's Elvis and Carole King are the 2 people that are like deep in my bones. I drive by her house all the time, by the way, her childhood home.
Oh wow.
It's I like.
It's right there.
Yeah, it's 20 something 24. It's a yellow house on Avenue Y, or excuse me, on East 26th Street, 24th Street, excuse me, between Avenue X and Y. It's across the street from a park. I drive by it all the time.
Well, so I grew up in the part of New Jersey where she lived.
Where did you grow up in Jersey?
I grew up
We've
in
never.
Maplewood, New Jersey.
I know Maplewood.
Yeah, so she lived at the time. She lived in West Orange with Jerry Goffin so this is like in the mid '60s, like right after like she'd had they were, I think they were living in New Jersey at the time, but like all of the executives lived in South Orange, which is the neighboring town to I guess it was Columbia, or whatever she was writing for at the time, whomever she was writing for at the time. The person they had their contract with was living. Those executives were like in the fancy part of town. I lived in Maplewood, which is sort of the middle class part of that area, and then West Orange was the super fancy part of town that was like really built up in the 50s and 60s. And so after they made it big, they bought a house in West Orange, right off of Pleasant Valley Way, which is where Pleasant Valley Sunday comes from.
No shit.
Yeah, she was so frustrated living in the suburbs, so frustrated that about the plastic, keeping up with the Joneses life. That was like where I grew up. Now my area was like built in the teens and 20s and was very like, kind of all American, kind of interesting town. But yeah, when I found that out, I was like, what? Like. And the funny thing is, here in the East Bay, there's a Pleasant Valley Road too. So but it's not the same thing. Pleasant Valley Way in West Orange is like where, a lot of the nouveau riche wound up living in the '60s, and so it's a big part of songwriting. Hi, I can tell you stories about the origins of songwriting all day.
For those of you playing along at home, West Orange is right. Hold on, I can't get it I can't quite get it in the camera. Let's see. Here's
up.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying. I can't quite. I'm looking on the screen. Oh,
right.
It's all backwards. Yep. It's like just above Newark here. Here's here's Newark.
Yeah, there's the Oranges and Maplewood, and Elizabeth and Newark, in Irvington. Irvington, where they made Ampeg amplifiers.
They did.
Yeah. And Was that no? That was the other amplifier company. There's a lot of musical history in New Jersey. It's so funny because I'm thinking about getting tattoos. I thought of this the other day. I want to get matching tattoos of California and New Jersey on my thighs.
Nice.
So
I love that
wearing
idea.
A bathing suit. Just like, it's really funny, but like, it's funny because I've really wanted to. Where are you from in Jersey?
I'm from a town called South Plainfield. It's in Middlesex County.
Yeah, I know where it is.
I grew up in South Plainfield. Have friends that still live there. Most of my family is from Union County, Rahway. My ancestral home is Bayonne, New Jersey. That's where like my mother grew up. And, my entire family, aside from me, pretty much still lives right around there. Like my sister has moved up one rung in the world and lives in Westfield, New Jersey, which is a slightly more posh town in Union County, Anyway, Jersey is an incredibly important part of my roots. And I'm sure we could have a whole nother show about that because I think we were roughly around the same age. And when we were in middle school and early high school, New Jersey music was really quite the thing.
It really
was. It was killer.
There was a lot of good stuff coming out of Jersey at the Railroad Earth, all that stuff.
Also, we were lucky that for those of us that were kind of rock oriented, and half of me we had legitimate heavy metal on the radio in New Jersey. 5. Yeah, WSOU. It's still there, still playing metal. And I tell some of my metalhead friends about this. They're like, wait. They didn't play Slayer on the radio. I was like, this station did. This one college radio station out of Seton Hall. And they're like, Seton Hall, like the basketball? And I'm like, yes. That's my sports bro impression, by the way. But I'm like, no, they totally played Slayer like on the radio. And then they would play like 13 really awesome local metal bands before they played another song by Metallica or Nuclear Assault, Anyway, there you go. It is.
People don't know this about me. I was a giant metalhead when I was a kid.
Nice.
Yeah.
There's no shame in that. I have seen Iron Maiden, not this past summer, obvs, but the 2 summers before that. I saw them in summer of 19 and summer of 18 at Barclays Center in Brooklyn.
Lucky.
And dude, they're such a killer live band. Like it's so good. And they're all old as fuck.
I really want to see Judas Priest.
So,
I don't know if you follow Rob Halford on Instagram, but it's all him in leather with cats. And it's the most adorable thing ever. Like, oh my God, it's so great. Because it's just like, it's the one thing that brings me joy. And it's like, he has Metal Scream Mondays. And it's just like, he's like, just let it out. It feels so good when you go, There's a band here that's comprised of friends of mine who are all dykes. And it's called the Halford Wives. They're wonderful. Karen Rose, who did my tattoo, is the lead guitar player, and she's married to Krista Hillhouse from Four Non Blondes, and it's just like this all-star. And my drummer plays drums with them, and it's like this all-star collective of just the most badass dykes in the world playing Judas Priest. It's so good.
Halford did he really taught an entire generation of little boys about this might sound ridiculous, like diversity in the gay men's community.
Yeah.
Because when you grow up, a homophobic white kid in the suburbs, and you think that gay looks a particular way, and then you're idolizing Judas Priest, and Rob Halford says, he comes out, and some people are like, holy shit. And he's like, wait, have you not seen what I do here? Like, I've been repping this community for a very long time. And then you're suddenly like, oh, that's there it is.
And it's like, I'm living after midnight.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, Yeah. And you're like, oh, the leather thing? Now I get it. Okay. Okay, so apparently you and I have to start another show where we just talk about songwriter origins and the weird, like socio societal paths that music fandom takes you.
Honestly, after doing this with you, I feel like we could do a podcast.
The question I ask myself at this point, and the people that listen fairly regularly, is: are we just doing a live podcast at this point?
I mean, might be.
That's fine with me. I mean, I started these because like I needed to do something. I needed to force myself to play the guitar and sing songs, and then I did them for a few months, and I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And then I was like, "Oh, people are going to get really bored of my fucking songs. Maybe I should have some friends come on." And here we are.
Or you could just get yourself a pair of cheap sunglasses. I don't know. It seems to work for some people. I have been listening to a lot of ZZ Top lately. They had that thing on Netflix, and I was just like, I've just been like, you know. I mean, it's just like, it's all like great Mixolydian, like weird, like just blues box stuff, but it's brilliant.
And great trio playing right there. You want to talk about doing a lot with a little? You listen to the live versions and you're like, this is fucking transcendent. You know,
that's the thing. It's like I always play with trios. I rarely play in quartets. And if it is a quartet, it's like, you know, there'll probably be a singer. But Stevie Ray Vaughan talked about it a lot. Like it was he was comparing himself favorably to Santana. He wasn't taking the piss out of Santana. But he's like, I love Santana. The band is like, you know, is like a big comfortable couch. But I like playing on toothpicks. And I really think about that a lot. Isn't that fucking deep?
I do love that.
Yeah, especially like, I mean, I love playing with other guitar players for sure. And I mean, one of my big influences is Stephen Stills. And I love like the thing that he did with Neil Young in Buffalo Springfield. Buffalo Springfield is really a huge influence on me, songwriting wise. Richie Furay, I could go on and on. If you don't know Richie Furay and the early Springfield stuff, like, he's a freaking genius. It's like Neil Young and Stephen Stills were not the only cool thing to come out of that, and that's the origins of Americana right there. But they would do these guitar wars with each other, and it's the kind of thing I really love doing, especially when I'm in New York and then there's another guitar player with me, like Mark Marshall, for instance. It's like, you know, I mean, it's like I'm never going to win a guitar battle with Mark Marshall.
Few are.
It's certainly fun, and when Mark used to play with my band all the time, that was like really a big part of it, because I was obviously fronting the band and mostly playing rhythm guitar. But then we'd have, you know, he's such a giving player that we would just do that thing. It was so cool. But there was a point a couple of years ago where I actually came to New York to play, and some of the usual people couldn't make it, and it was just me and I think me and Chris and Andy, me and Chris Kelly and Andy Mack, and somebody was like, "That's the best damn show I've seen you play in a couple of years." I was like, "What? No, stop. No." They're like, "No, you're a really good guitar player, and like, you know, you do your thing, and it's your thing, and it's really wonderful to listen to. You don't need to have another guitar player on stage." And I was like, "Wow, I hadn't thought about that." And I got back into the thing that I originally loved doing, which was the power trio thing, you know, and that's really it. I remember that that changed me. I was like, "Oh, that's really where my heart is, isn't it? It's in this power trio thing." And I got back into it, and I really love it. I mean, Zeppelin at its core is really a power trio with a lead singer who's
right.
You know,
yeah,
and it's really fantastic.
Yeah, I've always been really afraid of it. Partially because I tend to think more like an arranger than a player.
Right.
So like for me, I'm like, well, this song just has two guitar parts. For me, I'm always like, you have well, on one album anyway, you have like Slash and you have Izzy, and they're doing their two things, and they're both integral to this fucking song. Like you can't play Appetite for Destruction songs on one guitar. Like I've seen Lily Mays do it,
Right.
but
Or AC/DC.
yeah, exactly. You need those two things. And in my mind, like that's the way my guitar brain has always worked. And so I've always had like either some sort of keyboardist on a gig with me,
Mm-hmm.
or I've had a second guitar player in the band, and the two guitar parts have been very arrangey. Um, but at some point, I I started to kind of get high on myself as a guitar player, which I never really had been. And I got interested in showcasing my own stuff a little bit. And I started just kind of booking, like, you don't want to call them cover gigs, but, restaurant-y gigs where you're sitting there and you're playing, country tunes, bluegrass tunes, R&B tunes, and jazz tunes for 2 or 3 hours. And you want the bread to be as good as possible. So you want as few people on stage as possible. So I started doing them as a trio, and I started really enjoying finding the cracks in there, as opposed to hiding from them and hiding from the silence and the naked parts of the song. I really started to say, oh, well, what if we leave it there on purpose? And once I found a trio that really wanted to explore that in the same way, both of which had way more trio playing experience than I did, it got incredibly exciting really quickly. And that's been like my obsession for the last year.
It's really great. I mean, I'm looking forward to the time when you and I can actually get together and jam out. I mean, one of the things about not playing out is like honestly, for months, like until people started calling me up and were just like, "Hey, can you do some session work for me? Can you lay down some lap steel? Can you lay down some sweet telly parts or whatever it was?" Like, I mean, I'll fully admit that like I spent a lot of the past, of the first 3 months of the pandemic really like not playing except for like my live streams on, and even more recently, I was when I moved into my new place, there were a lot of changes, and one of the things that I sadly do when I'm depressed is I don't play music. I just, and when the world is hard and I'm going through a lot, I don't necessarily turn to my guitar, and that's often a mistake. And my practice regimen is like basically the first thing to go. It's just like I'll just like sit around and fucking be depressed and whatever. And so one of the things that that I love and need to do and that I miss doing is just playing fucking music. I was playing 4 gigs a week, and now like going from like 4 gigs a week, and not just my own stuff but like other people's music, and 4 gigs a week, and like several rehearsals, and playing bass in bands and playing steel in bands and playing Telecaster and then playing other shit, and then like having to learn other things and doing all that stuff, and going or flying to New York and like having a full packed schedule for the entire time I was there. Because honestly, when I get called, when I say, hey, I'm coming to New York, and I mention it to people, all of a sudden I've got like 15 gigs where it's like I'll have like one anchor gig, and then all of a sudden it's like everybody's like, hey Mia, come on, yo, yeah, yeah, and last when I came to New York, my last actual show was, my last show in the Bay was at Gilman, but my last actual show was they invited me to do the Rockwood 15th anniversary thing, which was
Oh,
such an honor. And I just put the poster up on my wall. And
nice.
yeah, because that's just like, and it was such a special night because they packed it with, it was all of my old friends, and that was the thing. It's like, I think that's the thing about New York that I really loved and still love, is that I could, if I wanted to, play music every single night of the week, and I can do that here too. But there was this sense I was always learning, and I'm always learning here too. It's just a different kind of thing, you know, and um, yeah, I miss that a lot. I miss just getting up on stage and just ripping it up, and I just want to, that's it's I really admire folks who are just like taking this time and really honing their musicianship in a different kind of way than maybe they've had the time to. Because certainly having this time off from being on the road or being like, okay, I've got to learn like 14 people's different songs. I actually really love doing that. I love learning other people's music, and because it teaches me songcraft. It teaches me this, and like, so being forced to almost look in a mirror and just say, what are my deficits? What do I need to learn? What do I need to accomplish? And also just being like, all I really want to do is do what I did when I was like 12 and like plug into a loud amp and play really loud, ugly chords because the world is fucked up right now, and you can't always do that in an apartment. So
it's funny. I feel like as musicians, we've had the opposite pandemic experience. You said that because you go to the Jack Hardy Songwriting Exchange every week, you've written 70 songs. I was invited actually by Jack when I was playing at an open mic at like the C Note in 2000, probably. I wasn't even living in New York at the time.
I met Jack on Avenue C too.
Yeah,
Blue Room. He invited me.
It
piece of paper.
I never went. It was just something that just never occurred. I didn't live in New York at the time. I know that not everybody that goes does. Yeah. But he invited me, and I was like, oh, this is really. I didn't know anything about it. I didn't understand that was a cool thing, and as a result, I've never ever gone. But like I was saying, you've written 70 songs and hadn't practiced your instruments until people started calling you to give you work. I've written one song from scratch since March. I have like spruced up old stuff. I've taken stuff off the wood pile and dusted it off. I've like tinkered with and finished some things in a very like work-like way, in a crafty way. But I haven't found a way to write through any of this. But I have played the guitar like fucking crazy. Like it's what I've done. I feel like I'm at some point when we can go out and play gigs again in New York City and people can play 4 doubles a week. I feel like I'm gonna be able to walk out there and be like, I'm a guitar player for hire. And they'll be like, well, we remember you. And I'll be like, motherfucker, you don't remember anything. Watch this. That's what I've done. I've practiced the guitar entirely too much.
Yeah, I mean that's a way to be. I mean, and that's the thing. Also, I will say that I will speak for the group, and I'll say that invitation is still open. You can come write songs and bring them to the Songwriters Exchange, or you can just show up and hang out with us.
I think I do want to come and start listening, because I understand that there's such a history of craft, and there's a real process to the room. You know what I mean? Like there are standards. I don't mean like good, bad standards. I don't mean like good, bad standards, but I mean like there's a way that you guys communicate with each other. And and I think that's really important when you're trying to workshop something,
It's a respectful, very measured way of, everybody's songs. We're not judging it against some standard of what is a good song and what isn't. It's, trying to, it's understanding that everybody's an individual and everybody writes songs differently. And, I'll send you a Facebook invite and whatnot. But yeah, we've been meeting virtually on Zoom for 38 weeks, which is ridiculous. But it's also been so good because like my songcraft is really like, so it's like, it's sort of a catch as catch can thing, right? Like some things have improved and like some things I've left lie by the wayside because I was not living in a place that was necessarily conducive for me to be musical. And like I said, when I get down, it's like sometimes my guitar is not the thing that I reach for, which is not necessarily the thing that I want to be doing. So right now I've been really concentrating a little bit more on, sitting there and just like noodling and whatnot and figuring out, what I want to learn and what I want to do. But it's often when I have a project is when I start, ripping it up and figuring out what I want to do and how I want to play. And it's hard. So you and I might need to communicate. I might want to take a lesson from you or something, because it sounds like you've been doing a lot of really cool stuff, and I really would like to expand my palette.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that, and thank you for the nudge to attend the group. I actually am in the Facebook group.
Good.
Sharon Goldman let me in at some point.
Excellent. So you know what's up. Great.
I do know what's up, and I'm like, there's that Zoom link. If I can just put aside the time, I'm going to do this. I'm going to go and just listen.
Yeah, please.
Wave. I should, because the last time that I was writing super regularly was in another song club context. Yes. And since that's not happened, and unfortunately it really hasn't picked up virtually, and I really hoped it would, and I've kind of nudged our leader, as it were, to kind of get it going. But he's not been too into that idea. So I think I need to come along and look at what y'all are doing, because I need to start writing. Yeah. Well, listen to me. It's 10:30 on the East Coast.
Okay.
And this is the, I think, longest show we've done thus far, which is really cool and exciting, because you and I, like, just personally don't know each other half as well as I do 90% of the people that have been on the show so far. So it's really exciting to me that you've been so ready to, like, open up and talk so freely and so honestly about not only how this pandemic has treated you, but the way that the West Coast has treated you as a person and as a musician. I love hearing these things, and these are the conversations that I'm interested in. But since we're still here, I'm going to have you play one more song, as long as anybody's out there listening, and then I'll come back and then we'll say goodnight together. Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and put your credentials back on the screen, because I love these little banners that I can create. Somebody said it looks like fucking C-SPAN up in here.
C-SPAN. It's not as boring as C-SPAN. Thanks. Do you have any requests from my oeuvre?
I would really like to hear the most recent single, Somebody's Winning. No, Somebody's Losing. Well, you say both of those things in the chorus. So
I will.
I'm so bad at titles. I don't remember the titles of my own fucking songs. It's can't remember the name of it. Somebody's gonna lose. All right. You know what? I'm just gonna shut up and let you play whatever you want to play. And that's gonna be okay. So please, take it away. Ladies and gentlemen, Mya Byrne, I lost your audio for a minute. You're just far off mic. Cool. Ladies and gentlemen, Mya Byrne is going to play us another song. Take it away.
I'd like to play Somebody's Winning, but I'll be honest and say that I haven't played it in a while, so I don't quite have it in the brain pan. So I'm going to play a different one. That one doesn't work that way. When you're lost in the reeds and the rushes with the cattails tall as your head, you better not get caught in the mud. I'll leave you gone for dead. The tide comes in, you'll be splashing when the waves come up to your knees. But you better not mess with the wide, wide river. It's gonna leave you begging, please. It looks so safe when the water's low and the bugs come buzzing up high. Around your head you walk through the bushes, that's the way you're gonna die. And it sure looks pretty when the sun sinks low, the rays turn pink in the trees. But you better not mess with the wide, wide river, it's gonna leave you begging, please. Sweep you away from the Gulf to the sea. Most boats that go down don't come back when the surgeons are finally washed down. You don't want to step, you'll be next in line. Don't you even now wonder the bastard tide comes around for you. It ain't no kind of disease. But you better not mess with the wide, wide river. It's gonna leave you begging.
Awesome. Woo. That ability to like synthesize the rock thing and like the somewhat tropey folk thing, like the image of the wide, wide river is really, really awesome. I love when people are able to do that. That's what makes this world of Americana, as they say, whatever that word means in 2020, really fantastic. That you can borrow so awesome.
Yeah, I love that song. I wrote that song I wrote that song right before Hurricane Sandy, and and the day that I finished it was the day that Hurricane Sandy fucking hit, and it freaked me out because it's about a hurricane. It's about the Hudson River. I started it that summer, and when I was living upstate, and I'm just like, that song has legs. It's just like, that song's kept me going for a long time. I didn't play it like after Sandy. I was like, I got really spooked, and I was like, no. But like now I'm just like, okay, play that song now.
Awesome.
Yeah, and that's on my record. That's on Spotify.
As I Am, right? Yeah. You can find all of Mya's stuff wherever you find music online. And I've had her credentials on the socials going across, because I know that you definitely want to give her a follow. If you're somebody that's just usually here to see me, and this is your first time seeing Mya, make sure that you give her a follow with those things, because she's always up to something cool. Like she said, she's working on a new record right now. And she's got plenty to say. She also, I didn't even get into this tonight. In addition to being a musician, you do have a bit of a writing career going. And that makes me really excited, because I'm sure that those two things fuel each other. If you're here to see Mya and you've never met me before, I'm Chris Q Murphy, and you can follow my shit because I do these shows every Tuesday, and I'm always super excited to have new people come along and watch me sit and bullshit with people. And sometimes it's an hour, and sometimes apparently it's an hour and 40 minutes long. And sometimes my guests play 2 songs, and sometimes 5. Sometimes I play 6 songs, and sometimes I play 1. I don't know. Who cares? I care. I guess that's why we're here.
This was such a pleasure.
Thank you. It was a pleasure for me too. I love this. Is there any parting words or last things you want to say to the universe before we sign off?
Yes, I want to say congratulations to Elliot Page for coming out today. And, you have made a huge statement in a time when trans people need a lot of hope. So thank you, Elliot.
That was a hugely exciting piece of news today. It was so celebratory. And one of the things that he said in his coming out statement that I thought was really beautiful and interesting was that he is overjoyed, but that joy is fragile.
Yeah.
I was like, that is something that as a cishet white guy, I've never had to think about the idea of there being fragility and joy. Joy is very one-dimensional to me. And that statement smacked me upside my head. And I felt like I had a new lens to look at things through just by reading those couple of words.
That's beautiful, Chris.
Thank you.
For sharing that.
Thanks for letting me share that. You know, whatever I can do to make his voice louder at this point, right?
Yeah.
I hope that we see him getting just as many juicy roles as, you know, as he finds his way through the transition, especially in such a super public way, you know.
He is the most high-profile person to come out as trans ever, and that's saying a lot. He is literally, like, with an existing career.
Right.
My friends and I were talking about this. It's definitely, he is literally the most high-profile human being to come out, you know, at least since Caitlyn Jenner. But, you know, I really hope that his coming out really emboldens more people to come out, because I know a lot of people who are not out because they're frightened of losing their careers, they're frightened of losing. It's why it took me so long to come out, you know.
Yeah.
And we're in a different place now, and at the same time we're still very much in the same place, because we, you know, things move, things advance, and I'm glad you're a teacher, because I know that, you know, a lot of kids are probably just, they look up to you, and you're the kind of person who, I know you're the kind of person who just respects people, and so I'm glad that the kids have somebody like you to hopefully embolden them.
I hope so. Thank you. That means the world to me. I mean, this is, being a teacher is part of who I am, and making space for every voice imaginable is part of my fucking explicit and implicit anyway. I'm glad that you recognize that a little bit, because that's a huge part of what I've tried to do in my classroom for as long as I can remember. So thanks. All right. Well, this has been fucking beautiful. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm truly thrilled. Ladies and gentlemen, Mya Byrne, one last round of applause from your homes. I wish I had a fancy sound button that made an applause sound. Thank you for that part. I'll send it right back at you. And I will say, everybody have a wonderful night. Have a wonderful week. And I hope to see you all next Tuesday. Love to everybody. Thank you.